Will Israel completely withdraw from the Golan Heights?
Will the PLO have an army in Gaza and Jericho?
Why many American Jews are up in arms over the Rabin-Arafat deal.
This and more on this edition of the JNN Evening News. Hi, I'm Caroline Greenberg.
And I'm Howard Barbanel, and here's what's happening. In January, President Bill Clinton met with Syrian President Hafez Assad in Geneva, where the U.S. reported a breakthrough in Syria's approach to peace talks with Israel. For the first time, Assad said he was ready for normal relations with the Jewish state, but again failed to specify what that really means. At a joint press conference between the two presidents, Israeli journalists were banned, showing that while Assad talks peace, he doesn't want to be in the same room with Israelis. This was also a shameful appeasement by the U.S. to bigotry. Assad repeated his demand for full Israeli withdrawal from the strategically important Golan Heights as a precondition for any peace.
Prior to 1967, the Syrians used the Golan as a staging ground for rocket artillery and sniper fire on the Jewish communities in the Galilee below. Children spent every night in shelters, and day-to-day activities were hazardous.
Israeli public opinion polls clearly show a majority opposed to a Golan withdrawal and distrust of Assad. Assad is a brutal dictator in the Saddam Hussein mold and is allied with Iran's Ayatollahs and is a sponsor of no fewer than 10 Palestinian and Shiite Muslim terrorist groups based both in Damascus and South Lebanon.
Assad has been stockpiling thousands of chemical warheads and has a whole host of newly arrived North Korean Scud missiles, which could blanket most of Israel. He has been acquiring billions in tanks and planes, all with an eye to military parity with Israel. Assad's Syria is also very active in trafficking drugs to the west. Reliable sources report that Israeli airman Ron Arad, missing since 1986, is being held in western Syria by pro-Iranian terrorists with Assad's full knowledge.
Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin has said that Israel may have to pay a painful price for peace with Syria, meaning withdrawal of the 13,000 Israelis from the area. Various labor ministers have promised a national referendum on a major Golan pullout, but others in the government are denying this. The opposition Likud party under Benjamin Netanyahu has called for new elections rather than a referendum.
Many in the American Jewish community fear the specter of heavy U.S. pressure on Israel to make concessions to Syria, as the Clinton administration may be looking for a quick, cheap foreign policy triumph. A withdrawal from the Golan would set in motion Israel's strategic retreat on all fronts, given the Rabin-Arafat deal as well.
PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat has been playing a tough game of poker with the Rabin government. The PLO is demanding a police force of 30,000, while Israel itself only has 20,000 for 4 times as many people. Likud member of Knesset Ron Nachman has termed Arafat's police an army, not a police department. Arafat's police will have an FBI-like internal intelligence section and a CIA-like external wing, all operating from Gaza and Jericho.
The PLO is seeking to have its men at all border crossings between Gaza, Egypt, Jericho, and Jordan. The Near East report quotes Reuters as saying that Arafat Aid Solomon Najab stated that Palestinian control is indispensable and that Israeli security cannot come at the expense of Palestinian sovereignty.
Terrorism is rising at an alarming rate. Intifada violence, Jews killed, is up a whopping 285% over 1989, the Intifada's 3rd year, with as many Jews killed in the 3 months after the Rabin-Arafat handshake as were killed in all of 1989. Murders by Arabs of other Arabs is also rampant, according to a report in the New York Times, with over 960 killed as of last December. In fact, it is 4 times more likely for an Arab to be killed by an Arab today than by the Israeli army.
The Jerusalem report quotes PLO leaders as saying that without more violence, it won't be possible to push the Israelis further down the path of greater concessions. As to the PLO police protecting Jews in the territories, the New York Times quotes Fatah members as saying they won't protect settlers. They won't interfere with attacks by the fundamentalist Hamas. A PLO commander in the Gaza asserts that if the Israelis think we'll turn on our brother Palestinians, they're wrong, and that the groups opposing the peace agreement have the same goals we have. They just use different methods. Some of us, none of us, will give up until the Jews have left and we have our state.
Arafat writes to Rabin on letterhead saying, President of Palestine. They plan a Palestinian currency, postage stamps, telephone, area code, passports, border patrols, and TV and radio stations where they'll agitate for Israel's destruction. Israel is ceding all state-owned lands. Most of Judea and Samaria is empty, with Arabs primarily living in cities and towns. And the government is ceding water rights.
The Rabin government has been putting pressure on the Jewish residents in Judea, Samaria, Gaza, and the Golan, trying to make them feel insecure and unwanted. The Labor government especially denigrates predominantly religious communities, forgetting that Rishon LeZion and Petach Tikva were once fragile frontier settlements themselves. We have a special report on the situation in the territories.
The state of Israel is about the size of New Jersey. It's a very small area. It is inconceivable that Jews should be in danger in Bethel, and 15 miles away in Jerusalem, they should not be in danger. It is such a small postage stamp size state that it's inconceivable to think that one section of the state is in danger and the other section of the state is somehow secure. The political situation and political arrangements can be made even on the smallest of pieces of land. But security arrangements, arrangements of life and death, arrangements of protection from terrorism and assassins, that can't be done simply by drawing a line on the map. And therefore, if this 130,000 group is in danger, then the other 4 million Jews in the state of Israel are equally in danger.
If your neighbor tried to kill you or your family 6 times, what would you do? Wouldn't you take every precaution to defend yourself? The 6 wars Israel has fought, the terrorist attacks we've suffered, are no different. In today's peace process, we're taking an enormous gamble. Terrorist attacks have not ceased. In fact, they've increased.
The basic objectives of the PLO have not changed. And the fact of the matter is that the Palestinian covenant has not been changed and apparently will not be changed by Mr. Arafat and the PLO. And therefore, what is inscribed in that covenant, namely that the Palestinians will continue to struggle for the elimination of the State of Israel, remains a strategic objective of that organization.
In defending herself, Israel took territory vital to her defense that historically was part of our homeland. For many reasons, especially strategic, all previous Israeli governments encouraged Jews to live there. They helped them, financed them. But now, those same Jews are in danger of being abandoned. This is not a matter of peace at any price. It's a matter of what true peace is or isn't.
I've been in too many wars to have any romantic approach or any other positive approach to war. I want peace. The only thing I'm afraid of is that peace now will be at the expense of peace for my children and grandchildren. That I might have not territories for peace, but territories for an intermission, for a timeout.
We're all for peace. The question is how to attain it. In any negotiation, first must come the lives of our own citizens. Do you think risking the security of the now 150,000 Jews who live in the heartland of Israel will buy peace for the rest of Israel? It might be, God forbid, just the opposite. We've often heard Jericho and Gaza first. What is next? In Jerusalem alone, 100,000 Jews live in the post-1967 neighborhoods of Ramot, Gilo, Talpiot, and Neve Yaakov. Are they any different from Jews living in Efrat or Ariel? There are vital questions that have to be answered. Will the present process lead to true peace with all Israel's Arab neighbors, or will it bring the danger closer?
I think we are in a difficult situation because our government has made a very dangerous gamble on Israel's future and security. I fear that we're going to see more problems. I hope we will not see bloodshed, but I fear we might see more bloodshed because the gamble seems to be facing many more difficulties than those that were predicted or expected by the government under Prime Minister Rabin.
Who is Israel really dealing with? What are their real motives?
This Palestine for us. If the American need or not need, this for us. And we must know that. And if the American bring all the strong on the world, we take it back. If not today, tomorrow, not tomorrow, after 100 years, we take it this back. Because this from Quran said this Palestine for us. I want to tell you the truth. I am not a terrorist, or I am not, soldier. Or I am a Muslim man, and a Muslim. If I believe in my Quran, I don't believe in any situation here, and I don't believe in any peace.
Who are the power brokers? Can they be trusted? There are pretty good reasons why all previous Israeli governments have continued to maintain and strengthen Jewish presence in Judea, Samaria, Gaza, and the Golan Heights. We all know what happened when Syria controlled the Golan. It takes 2 minutes for a fighter jet to fly from Amman to Tel Aviv. That gives Israel only seconds to respond. Without its heartland, Israel is only 9 miles wide. That is not even half the length of Manhattan. It can be crossed by car in 10 minutes. The mountain range of Judea and Samaria controls the coastal plain where most of Israel's population lives. From there, with mobile rocket weaponry, Tel Aviv is vulnerable. So is any airliner taking off or landing at Ben-Gurion Airport. 70% of Israel's water comes from these areas. Could America live, run its industries, farm, and survive on 30% of its water? Knowing all this, how would you negotiate? We cannot let our fellow Jews down. Now more than ever before, they need our moral and financial support. They need to know that we, in America, have not forgotten them. What happens to our fellow Jews in Judea, Samaria, Gaza, the Golan, Jerusalem, and Tel Aviv not only affects us, but is our responsibility. This is a time for solidarity. We must stand together. Jewish lives are too precious to be gambled with. We all want to live in peace, but a peace we can all live with.
Responding to all this, American Jews have been rallying in support of the Jews of Judea, Samaria, and the Golan. On January 23rd, an amalgam of Manhattan synagogues held a solidarity evening, and on Tu B'Shvat, January 27th, there was a large rally on Fifth Avenue. We have with us Steve Eisenberg, who's a board member of Lincoln Square Synagogue on the West Side and one of the leaders of the Evening of Solidarity that was sponsored by the various synagogues on the West Side. Steve, thank you for being with us. And the video that we just saw, Gambling with Our Lives, why did you produce it, and what's important about it?
The video was created by Ashley Lazarus and Gabby Goslin. The reason for the video was we felt it was very important that the settlers living in Judea and Shomron, their lives be shown to the world. You know, unfortunately, we believe the press has demonized these individuals who are living there to build their families, to live, you know, actualize a dream they've had for many years, to live in the land of Israel. And these settlers are being perceived as obstacles to peace. I mean, these are children and women and grandfathers and grandmothers who are living out a Jewish dream. And we felt we had to show the world, no matter how one feels about the peace process, and hopefully it will be a peace process, these settlers are being abandoned by world Jewry. Their security needs are being ignored, electricity, water needs, and we wanted to show this to the Jewish community, the reality of the situation, how grave the circumstances are.
Would you like to also have it shown in synagogues and schools and other organizations?
Absolutely. I think the video has tremendous educational potential to show people a story or side of the problem for the settlers that haven't been seen before.
Should people call in for a copy?
Absolutely. The video was really a labor of love, really built on the volunteer efforts of Gabi and Ashley Lazarus. But for a small fee, we will be selling the film just to try to recoup some of the costs, which won't come near to what it costs us to produce it. Absolutely.
Now, why are the Orthodox Jews so committed to the Jews in the territories and to the territories in general?
Well, I like to believe that all Jews are committed to Jews everywhere in the state of Israel. For 2,000 years, every Jew, regardless of how one defined himself, Orthodox or conservative, Reform, a Jew was a Jew is a Jew, we, prayed for the day that we'd be able to live in the land of Israel. So I wouldn't say it was only Orthodox Jews and put labels on us. I think, every Jew that has a love for the Jewish people has a love for all Jews, regardless if they live in the territories or if they live in Israel.
How do you feel about having to possibly abandon biblical and holy sites, and how can Jews, especially observant Jews, reconcile themselves to all this, and what, if anything, do you think you can do about it?
Well, again, we're going back to the labels of how observant Jews or Orthodox Jews feel. The question is, how should Jews feel? I'm not saying that Arabs should leave their homes, but for sure Jews shouldn't have to leave their homes as well. And if Jews who are more connected or outraged by it, I think all Jews should be outraged. For thousands of years, we've been waiting for the moment to go back into our land and to ask Jews to abandon their homes. Remember, these people moved there not only under the Likud government, but also under labor governments, and they had the help and the encouragement of these governments. And all of a sudden, these people are being demonized as obstacles to peace. This process has been going for 25 years. So it's hard for me to reconcile the Jews having to leave, our land. But I think the broader question is, how can Jews tolerate it? How can anyone tolerate Jews, a land be Judenrein in the land of Israel?
Well, thank you, Steve, for coming by, and certainly we hope that a lot of people will respond to the Gambling for Our Lives video, and that we'll be having it seen far and wide. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Beth Gilinsky is head of the Jewish Action Alliance, who sponsors the Fifth Avenue and a prior Times Square rally. Beth, why are you and other groups out on the streets protesting?
We are running a series of activities, which includes rallies and demonstrations, to show the world, to show the Jewish community, and to show Israelis also that we want to support the people, the Jews who are living in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza in their fight to not be trampled on by the PLO, and also to protest the dismantlement plan that we see between Israel and the PLO terrorist organization.
Now, who are the groups protesting with you, and who do they represent?
Well, I'm not going to be able to list all of them because there are so many, and we're really glad that so many people have come on board. But World Committee for Israel is the major sponsor of this particular set of rallies right now, and we're working in conjunction as well with the Rabbinical Alliance of America, with Americans for Safe Israel, Coalition for Israel, Amuna Women, Jerusalem Reclamation Project, Likud USA, National Council of Young Israel is on board, Pro-Israel, the VODs of Flatbush and Queens, Yesha Council, Pro-Israel, I don't know if I mentioned, many, many organizations, fine organizations, people working really, really hard to get the message out that we're very deeply concerned about this current process, and we want everyone to stop and take a serious look at what's happening before we take irrevocable steps that we can't turn back on.
Now, some people say that you're all a bunch of nuts and extremists. What do you say?
Well, I've been called a nut and an extremist before, and so have all these other people, but I think we're not. I think we're people who are deeply concerned about being Jews and about Israel. We love Israel. We want peace for Israel. And We don't want to see it just given away to Yasser Arafat and the PLO terrorist organization without the proper guarantees. We think that there are other plans that have been proposed by many different people in academics and in politics and in Jewish organizations that should be looked at before we plunge into this very troubling current peace plan that I don't even call a peace plan, because I think what it will lead to is terrorism and more war.
Beth, do American Jews really have a right to express their views on this subject?
Not only do American Jews have a right to express their views, but I think Jews all over the world not only have a right, but have an obligation to express their views. The land of Israel was given not only to Israeli citizens, but to the Jewish people. And according to history, religion, and international law, this land belongs to the Jewish people. We all are part of that Jewish people. And so I think we have a right and an obligation to tell our brothers in Israel and to tell our governments wherever we are, and to tell the Israeli government, and to tell the Arabs and the PLO and the terrorist organizations exactly how we feel about all of these issues.
Okay. People complained when Peace Now was demonstrating against the Likud government. How do you reconcile the demonstrating, and does this interfere with Israel's affairs?
I don't think this interferes with Israel's affairs. Certainly what happens in Israel will ultimately be decided by Israelis, as it should be. Their internal politics will be decided by them. However, Peace Now has proved itself to be basically a pro-PLO and anti-Israel organization. And I think we've seen them prove that over the years. So when people are protesting what Peace Now has done, I think they're absolutely in the right. But we do have, I think, a very special mandate at this time to speak out openly about how we feel about this. And it's very important that we not let ourselves be pigeonholed the way the media has pigeonholed us as right-wing extremists and militant extremists and all this kind of thing. That's often how a lot of us, we're just basic Jewish people coming from all Jewish backgrounds. And we want to see peace, but we don't want to see Israel destroyed in the name of false peace.
Beth, quickly, we've got about 30 seconds left. You're demonstrating, you're protesting, but how do you plan to win over the masses of American Jews and non-Jews to your point of view?
Well, a number of things can be done. I think we have to get the word out, and we have to have people understand what the issues are. And by explaining very clearly what those issues are, the Middle East conflict is such a complicated thing, and people who studied it for years and years don't know everything about it, but there are some very basic issues which we need to have discussed. The way we're going to do it is through an education campaign going all over the country to synagogues. We're going to be sending speakers out. We're going to be doing rallies and demonstrations. We're going to be publishing things in magazines and newspapers. We're going to be on TV and in the radio as much as possible, and just get the other point of view out, and then let people decide what they want to decide. But we want to get the other position out in the open.
Beth, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me here today.
Good
Appreciate
luck.
it. Thank you.
On July 13th, Israel is slated to implement the Rabin-Arafat agreement. You have an opportunity prior to that to visit Israel and see everything firsthand.
The Likud Young Leadership is sponsoring a summer mission to Israel from June 26th to July 7th. There will be extensive touring of Judea and Samaria and visits to the Jewish communities there. The tour will also take you to the Golan, the Galilee, an extended visit in Jerusalem, including top-level meetings, receptions, and briefings by Likud leaders such as Benjamin Netanyahu, Jerusalem Mayor Ehud Olmert, members of Knesset Benjamin Begin, Ron Nachman, and more.
The trip will visit Masada, the Dead Sea, the Negev, and Eilat. There will be tours of army bases and Israel's most exciting city, Tel Aviv.
This is a terrific trip for young people visiting Israel for the first time, and there's plenty of behind-the-scenes stuff to keep veteran visitors intrigued. For more information about the Young Leadership Mission, call Likud at 212-447-7887. That's 447-7887. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the JNN Evening News. I'm Caroline Greenberg.
And I'm Howard Barbanel, thanking you, and good night.
הבית שלי, הדרך שלי, הליכוד זה נכון. העתיד שלי, הביטחון שלי, הליכוד זה נכון. שלנו, נביא השלום, נהיה עלייה, הגשמת החלום. כולנו היחד, כל אחד לחוד, יודעים שזה נכון, זה הליכוד. הליכוד הוא בלב, הליכוד הוא בראש, הליכוד זה נכון. רק אחד יכול, מול כל השמאל, הליכוד זה נכון. הליכוד הוא בלב, הליכוד הוא בראש, הליכוד זה נכון. רק אחד יכול, מול כל השמאל, הליכוד, הליכוד זה נכון.